What's up, guys? I'm so excited to share with you the 6 Degrees of Freedom. It's one of the most valuable tools that can impact your movement and your coaching practice. So the 6 Degrees of Freedom are derived from aviation terms. You can look that up. And what we're looking at is firstly how the body moves relative to its starting position in space. So first degree of freedom, called the heave, basically moving up and down relative to your body starting position. So a squat would be a heave, and moving up and down on that plane. A quad press would also be a heaving pattern, down and up. Our second degree of freedom is the surge. Now the surge is moving forward and backward relative to your starting position in space. So here is my starting position. If I'm surging either forward or even backward, that would qualify as a surge. My sway is real simple. It's just moving right and left. So my lateral lunge might be a sway. Maybe my warrior 2 to skandasana might incorporate a sway. It's moving right and left relative to my starting position in space. So memorize those, your heave, your surge, and your sway. Get to know them. The simplest one is heave up and down. The next most sophisticated is your surge. And then your sway, which requires open hip stability, is the most complex. The next 3 degrees of freedom are pitch, yaw, and tilt. So real simple. Pitching is spinal extension or flexion. And it can also be like a hip hinge would be considered a little bit of pitch as well. Your yaw is rotation about the y-axis of the spine. So exercises that involve yaw in body weight conditioning, your sit through hip, for example. Your tripod actually involves yaw as well because there's rotation about the y-axis of the spine. Here, notice my shoulders stacking. I have to yaw even to get myself out of that position. I yaw, rotate around the block, and come on up. And then our tilt. Tilting is simply lateral bending. So an example of a tilt from mountain pose would be our big wheel, or our big wheel in warrior 2. The nice thing about training with clubs and Mace is that you can train the spine under load safely. So an example of training yaw under load, I could grab my club and come into twisted runner's lunge, either kneeling or back knee up. So I'm training stability at my end range of motion, just loading the spine in rotation or yaw. And then what happens is when I take my load away, again, I'm left with that proprioception, that activation in the motor units required to get me there, so it feels more stable. I've already established I have that range of motion there. All right, thank you guys. I hope that you implement this into your practice. Get to know your degrees of freedom, study them, find examples. Like if you look at any movement that you're practicing currently, generally it has anywhere from 1 to up to 5, maybe even 6 degrees of freedom present in that. So start to look at your movements from the lens of a movement coach and see, all right, am I leaking power in the heave? Am I leaking power in the sway? And I promise you, if you commit these to memory and you start really analyzing movement from that lens, you're gonna improve tremendously and create more spine stability and greater range of motion in your joints. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for showing up. Namaste.